is not wanting to let your teammates down. It's about belief in yourself.
Only more physical! Yeah! And we get more physical! Yeah! And we get it done Saturday! Yeah! Damn right we can!
Dear Coach, since I've known you, my outlook on life has changed. You are a true champion in life. Since the very first day I met you, I have had the greatest respect and admiration for you.
I'm going to tell you one thing we can fix is effort, guys, and attitude. That's what we got to fix, number one. We got to fix ourselves. That's where it's at. You can look at 1,000 things. Right back to that. I'm going to tell you something. We're going to fight harder. We're going to fight tougher. We're going to work harder. I'm just being blatantly honest with you. But we're going to keep going. We're not going to quit. We're not going to back off. We got to get ourselves picked up tomorrow, and we got to move forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, being welcomed by the current DC Everest football team, please welcome Wayne Steffenhagen's family. So wonderful to see everyone here today. Thank you for coming out. For those who don't know me, my name is Chris Conley, and when the football season begins this fall, I'll begin my 10th year of announcing DC Everest football on the radio on WRIG, which has broadcast every Everest football game for the past 50 seasons. It's a great privilege for me to be master of ceremonies for the celebration of Wayne Steffenhagen's life. A lot of us felt a tremendous loss in February when we learned of Coach Steffenhagen's passing, and at the time, it was impossible to hold such a large memorial service. Today is that time to gather and celebrate the life of Wayne Steffenhagen, and for the next hour or so, we hope to ignite many wonderful memories of a great man. If you're able, please stand and face the flag to your right as Lucas Gajewski, president of the DC Everest class of 2013, sings the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Those who know Coach Steffenhagen best know that he was a man of faith. We'll start today's ceremony with a time of reflection and prayer. Please welcome to the podium Pastor Richard Block from Mount Calvary Lutheran Church.
Tonight we gather together to celebrate the impact that one man had on so many people's lives. Yes, there'll be moments of sadness with the loss that we have experienced. But at the same time, there'll be lots of thankfulness and joy for who Wayne was for so many people. I came to know Wayne and Sandra through their active participation at the church that I serve, Mount Calvary Lutheran in Rothschild. They were present at church. After worship, they engaged people in conversation, and you could see that Wayne was talking, yes, about football, but also about many other things as well. When I think of Wayne, I'm reminded of a scripture verse from Galatians in the New Testament. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now, it's not that Wayne automatically had those qualities, but I think he grew into them. No one has all of them. Over the years, with his experience, I saw that Wayne grew into a fuller meaning of those qualities. With Sandra at his side, they both came to demonstrate those qualities in their relationship to each other and their relationship with others. 3 examples quickly come to mind. I'm impressed by the numerous times that I saw Wayne listening to a person carefully so that he could either encourage them or challenge them, whichever the case may be. I also remember a photo in the newspaper of Wayne and Sandra and another couple or two. The theme of that was that real men respect their wives. Wayne treated Sandra with respect and kindness. Finally, over the last few years, Wayne had some very difficult heart issues and surgeries, but he didn't let that get him down. Yes, he got very tired, but he showed grit. He showed that persistence that he had throughout his life. And he showed his trust, yes, in the doctors, but more so in God. Tonight we're going to hear a lot of different stories and examples of the integrity and passion of a man that many call Coach Steff. In sharing these stories, we honor him because he was an important person in our journey. In this moment of silence now, I invite you to bow our heads in prayer. Merciful God, we give you thanks that we can gather tonight and share our companionship with Coach Steffenhagen. He encouraged us by example. Help us to draw strength from what we are reminded of tonight so that we also can grow in the many ways that he influenced us. Empower us to encourage others, especially youth, that they may rise up to be men and women of integrity, grit, and compassion. In your holy name, amen.
We have many people to thank and say hello to who have come here today. Of course, the Steffenhagen family, you will be hearing from many of them during tonight's ceremony. They are grateful to see such a great turnout today. The Wisconsin football program is represented today. Their defensive line coach, Ross Kalanke, a Spash alum, is here. Len Lutke of the state championship Marshfield team, member of the Coaches Hall of Fame, is here. Dave Arneson, played college football with the Badgers, longtime Merrill High School football coach, is here as well. Coach Steffenhagen was a member of both the Wisconsin High School Coaches Hall of Fame and the National High School Coaches Hall of Fame, and they are represented here today. Tony Biolo, coach of Wisconsin Rapids, current president of the Wisconsin Football Coaches Association, is here. Former Mosinee football coach Paul Nowinski is here. Jerry Sins from all of those Edgar undefeated and state championship teams is here as well. Thank you for joining us today. Representatives from the Stevens Point Athletic Department are here. Jim Fergie, a DC Everest standout from the STEAM era and an NDSU All-American, has joined us today. Longtime Evergreens athletic director Jack Overgaard, who put together the schedules that Coach Steffenhagen's team went through like a knife through butter, is here as well. Current Everest athletic director Jim Seckel is with us. Everest assistant principal and assistant football coach Todd Bohm is here with his family. It was Coach who asked me to be a part of the ceremony, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Coach. Everest's current football coach Tim Strelo and his family, and many of the Everest football players for the upcoming season are here as well. We thank you all for coming here tonight. Some have boarded airplanes and traveled across the country to be here. Others have driven hundreds of miles, and some have just traveled up the street. And we're glad that you made it here for this celebration of Coach Steffenhagen's life. Wayne Steffenhagen was a farm boy from Minnesota. He fell in love with athletics in high school, and he excelled as a track and field athlete. He was the Minnesota State shot put champion, and that led him to the University of Minnesota. There he was shown cutting-edge strength and conditioning, which was advanced for the 1960s. It propelled him to the Big Ten's shot put championship. Building speed and explosion through strength training would become the bedrock of his coaching career as both a football and a track coach. He was an assistant coach at Spash under Jerry Fitzgerald. But Wayne had a burning philosophy to try his philosophies of conditioning for football as a head coach. In 1978, he took the head coaching job at Glendale Nicolet High School. And just a week later, the DC Everest coaching job opened up. We owe a debt of thanks to Glendale Nicolet. They let Coach Steffenhagen out of his contract there so he could coach here. It's hard to imagine Coach Steff as a knight instead of an evergreen. Can I have a very brief show of hands? Who here played or was coached by Wayne Steffenhagen? What an impressive group of local community leaders, people who have passed on their love of athletics to their children. You are Wayne Steffenhagen's living legacy. He looks down and is proud of all of us gathered here today. Our next speaker was a student at DC Everest High School when Wayne Steffenhagen was coaching. And she was back here leading the school district for the final 8 years of Coach Steffenhagen's tenure when he retired. She's been honored as School Superintendent of the Year and as a past president of the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators. She is a lifelong evergreen and is representing the DC Everest School District today. Please welcome our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Christine Gilmore.
Well, good evening, everyone. On behalf of the DC Everest School District, I'd like to welcome you to this celebration of Coach's life. And for all of our alumni, if you're out there, let's hear from you. Welcome home. Who's here? Before I get too far into my speech, I'd like to take a moment to give a shout out to all of those individuals that made tonight happen. It's an incredible event and took a lot of work, so let's thank all of those individuals. All of us here today recognize the incredible life of Coach Steff. It's only fitting that we'd gather here to celebrate his life on a field named in his honor, where he spent countless hours laying the foundation for these programs and inspiring student athletes. We are grateful for all that Coach Steffenhagen accomplished on behalf of the district on this very field and track. We all know of the many accolades and records, but I am most grateful for what Wayne Steffenhagen accomplished on behalf of our students beyond these fields. Our district has always sought to hire people who are passionate and called to make a difference in the lives of students. Wayne was called to be a teacher and a coach. And he spent every opportunity he had to teach our students to become a better version of themselves. He is a testament to that proud Everest Pride tradition. He built an athletic program built on principles that are applicable beyond a football field or a track. Principles that I'm certain that have impacted every one of you here today in some manner, and why you decided to come. Teamwork. No matter the task, Coach preached the value of teamwork, and he knew how invaluable people were to helping other individuals accomplish their goals. You could hear him say, commitment, collaboration, trust, integrity, and taking care of one another. Team was always first. Excellence. It wasn't enough to practice with Coach. To be the best you could be on the field, in life, or in the classroom, it was perfect practice that led to his excellence. His vision of excellence was clear to his coaching team, athletes and students. If you're going to do something, give it your best. He was tough, and you definitely knew if you could do better. How many people know that they could do better? But he was also kind and generous with his praise, pushing you to a higher level. Innovation. People don't always talk about innovation, but it can be defined as the creation, development, or implementation of something new to create something better to give a competitive advantage. And competitive he was. Coach Steffenhagen was a man of innovative firsts. We're the first high school in Wisconsin that had turf. We're one of the first high schools that had a comprehensive weightlifting program, a sprint training program, and the list goes on and on. No one trained like the Evergreens. He never, ever stopped trying new things and encouraging others to do the same. Every so often, I hear from alumni sharing their coaching advice strategies for Coach Strelo, back from when they went through with Coach Steff. They'd give me plays from the 80s, strategies. I smile and thank them, knowing darn well that that wouldn't be the Coach Steff of today. Hard work coupled with humility. All of us know how much he valued hard work. He stretched you to your very limits. And when that hard work paid off, he encouraged you to take pride in those accomplishments, but to do it with. After all, he knew there was always room to improve, and it was his sense of humility that would fuel you on. During the last 33 years, he proudly served our district and community. He led the way. He was the consummate teacher in the classroom, on the field, and in the gym. Yes, he's an evergreen legend. But just as importantly, Wayne was a loving husband, father, and grandfather. I'd often see him after his retirement. We'd stop and talk at the grocery store, and while we might chat for a few minutes about track or football, the conversation always turned to his family. Wayne had a lot to be proud of during his lifetime, but nothing brought him greater joy and pride than his family. With a sparkle in his eye, he would talk about Sandra, often about your walks. He'd tell me about Kelly, Jay, Todd, and he would always call them his wonderful grandchildren. So to you, his family, we say thank you. Thank you for sharing him with all of us. As we celebrate Coach Steff's life, I can imagine he would be honored, proud, humble, but he would want more from all of us today. He would want more from you. Tonight, I challenge you to take one of the things you have learned from Coach Steff and apply it either to your own life or helping another person to be better. You see, his legacy lives in all of you. Please keep his evergreen spirit alive. Thank you.
Mental toughness is more important than physical toughness. That's why great things happen in this country. It's because people don't believe, guys, you can't do something. That's what mental toughness is. Mental toughness is self-discipline within yourself to be consistent, to get the job done. It's discipline. It's doing something you don't want to do, but doing it the best you can. Mental toughness is sacrifice. You got to sacrifice all the time. Mental toughness is getting the job done when you're hurt, you're banged up, guys, and it's tough to do it, but you still do it. Mental toughness is fearless. It's having the courage to make plays. It's having the courage to get the job done when people think you can't get it done.
Time is now! No excuses! We're ready to
One of the marks of a great coach is that they allow their players to develop skills and their potential to their fullest. Coach Steffenhagen had many players who went on to play very competitive and high-level college football. We are honored to have as guests today two who played in the NFL. Dave Craig of the Seattle Seahawks is here today, and we're so grateful that you've come to visit. Chris Oswald from the Washington football team is here as well. Thank you both for coming. Tonight you're going to hear from several members of the Steffenhagen family. Jay Steffenhagen, conference, football, and track, was valedictorian of Everest class of 1986. And he continued the proud evergreen tradition of those who served their country after graduating. United States Air Force Academy, class of 1990, where he earned his engineering degree and continued to play Division I college football. Now he's a consultant in the technology industry, an expert in coaching teams of software engineers. He's contributed at industry-leading firms like Allianz, the largest insurance company in the world. Please welcome Wayne Steffenhagen's son, Jay Steffenhagen.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Chris. First and foremost, I want to thank you for coming. The outpouring of support from the community has been overwhelming, and we are grateful. I want to give a special thanks to the high school administration and all of their time and effort to make tonight happen. I'm Jay Steffenhagen, the second of Wayne and Saunders' 3 children. I'm a 1986 grad of DC Everest, and my dad coached me in both track and football throughout high school. Tonight, I want to highlight 3 of my dad's beloved qualities and the impact those qualities made on all of us. Wayne Steffenhagen was a leader. Leaders have great vision and are inspirational. They bring confidence to the team. Their simple presence makes people want to be better. Leaders have a strong bond and commitment to their team. They are forward thinkers, constantly learning new ways to improve. This directly translates to our lives and careers. Good leaders, Coach Wayne, bring positive results from the team, while the team is inspired to perform at the same time. It's a win-win situation. Wayne Steffenhagen could read people like no other. He could see untapped potential. Did he find that in you? He was someone who could pick a diamond out of the rough and coach them to become a state champion. He knew how to make you feel good about yourself, how to believe in yourself, and keep improving as a person day in and day out. It has helped us build relationships, both personally and professionally. It has taught us to stop and listen more to others and embrace their talents. The whole team will benefit in the end. Wayne Steffenhagen was a man of character, both at home. He prided himself in his integrity, always doing the right thing. He was a man of principle. He never sacrificed his integrity for a short-term gain. He was a great role model. The most important part of his legacy was the degree that he cared and invested in others, not just his family, but every single person that came into contact with him. For me, he was always someone I looked up to, often asking myself, even still today, what would Dad do in this situation? He was there for me every single day, and that's the part I miss the most. I want to take this opportunity to share one of my favorite memories of my dad. I was a mere 5 years old, and he took me to a Minnesota Gopher basketball game in Minneapolis. I had my clunky boots on, and he was holding my hand as we were walking into the arena. I remember looking up to him, and as he looked down at me smiling, he said, "Junior, you've got to keep going." He has used that phrase countless times over the years. It has stuck with me for life, often saying it to myself as I take on my own life challenges. "Junior, you've got to keep going." My dad, Wayne Steffenhagen, was an exceptional father, grandpa, husband, mentor, coach, leader, and friend. He set the bar high, and that's what made him so good. And I'm extremely humbled to be his son. Again, I thank you all for coming.
Our next speaker has distinguished himself in the world of sports and in business. He's a former president of Mosinee Paper and a former president of Reeser Energy, and serves on the board of directors of the Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin. His career as a college football official spans decades, on the field for the Big Ten Conference, and after 25 seasons, transitioning to another 20 seasons as a replay official and technical advisor. Long before he officiated his first Rose Bowl, he was a high school official in Wisconsin, where he worked some of Wayne Steffenhagen's games. Some of what was said on game night can't be shared with you, and some of those stories can. Please welcome Jim Kimmerly.
Thanks, Chris, and I will admit that's the first time I've ever heard anybody applaud in a football stadium for a referee. Thank you very much. The other thing I have is standing here with this mic. For 18 years I stood and I was able to control the mic on my side. So this is a little different, and I hope I don't screw it up. But anyway, I am, the committee and Matt and others, I'm a little disappointed because on our sheet that we had describing people, I was described as a non-athlete. I did play in the Big Ten, but a different sport. Anyway, one of the things they wanted me to reference Wayne and Coach Steff was the community reaction to him. He was extremely highly regarded in the community around here. I'd had the opportunity to see him in some speaking engagements. I saw him at the restaurants. Sandra and I would run into him in restaurants frequently, and several community events. I guess the best way to terminology or to phrase how Wayne was, he was revered. People really appreciated Wayne Steffenhagen. It's really interesting. I know there's some coaches here tonight, but think about our community and our general area. We have 3 Hall of Fame coaches. And Wayne was right there. He was revered just as much as the other one. Howie Steen, Quinn Brockmeyer, I have Wayne Steffenhagen. What community of this size can possibly have that kind of success in high school football? It's just unbelievable. Well, anyway, you see, and Chris said there's some things that can't be said that Wayne would go, and the pastor talked about how he encouraged or challenged. I can guarantee you, from a referee perspective, he challenged. There wasn't a lot of encouragement. But it's interesting, and of course Ross is here, and Chris, and David, and those fellas. And I went to the Big Ten in '79, And so as vocal as you see Wayne on the sideline, he was actually a piece of cake. Bo Schembechler, Lou Holtz, Nick Saban, Hayden Fry, and Barry. Beauties. Back then, the rules were a little different, and we were able to talk a little bit more to coaches and do things. But anyway, Wayne was interesting in the Big Ten and college football. The crew chief and the umpire go in the locker room and talk to the coaches. And what was very interesting, the number of times that I was asked, how's Coach Steph? I'd kind of look at, and they'd ask me, well, how's he doing? And my response was always, as far as I know, he's fine. Then they would always ask, do you have any good players? And I would usually respond, that's your problem, not mine. Of course, I never saw him play because I was always gone on Friday nights and so Saturday afternoons. But anyway, it was interesting because they, practically every coach knew him and asked about him. And that to me is an indicator of the respect that he had gained throughout the country. It's interesting, Wayne and I had kind of a unique relationship for a coach-referee. Obviously, because I didn't work a lot of his games. That's probably why. If I had, it would have been a lot different. But anyway, one of the things he always did, he was very inquisitive. Whenever I would see him and we would talk, it would be, what's going on in the Big Ten? What kind of experiences have you had? What kind of situations have you had? And and as I said earlier, the dialogue was a little different. And back in those days, now they're pretty similar. Your coaches can't come on the field, Ross, so you got to stay back this year. And but back in the old days, I said I would like to have a $100 bill for every time I've had my hip on Bo Schembechler, my hand on Bo Schembechler's hip, walking him off the field, saying, "Bo, you better get back before you get in trouble." That's just what happened all the time. In that same vein, I had a game in Hawaii. It was Michigan and Hawaii playing. It was the first game, live game televised back to the States or back to the mainland. And we had a split crew, which you don't have anymore. And then we had the WAC, half the crew were the WAC guys and half the Big Ten. And there was a call right at the end of the first half that Bo disagreed with the back judge. Of course, he was a WAC guy, so Bo didn't care what he said. And anyway, so I go over and I have my hand on his hip, and Bo get on. Of course, he's using a lot of adjectives and adverbs and nouns or verbs, however you want to categorize it. And then he made a statement to me that probably wouldn't be correct in today's environment. He always called me Jimmy. He said, "Jimmy, why in the hell do you think you're here? You're here to protect me from those pineapples." So anyway, he was pretty good. Another one, a couple other experiences I'll talk about because as I said, Wayne was always asking. Of course, he was the Minnesota guy, and if you heard his background there, and he called me one day and said, "What happened in Minneapolis?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what happened?" Well, so I proceeded to tell him that we had a game and it was the last minute of the game. Lou Holtz is coaching Minneapolis. They're playing Ohio State. They need a field goal to win, or excuse me, they need a touchdown to win. Field goal doesn't do it. They're behind by 4 points. The quarterback gets hurt on a third down play. He goes out. Long story short, Lou tries to run him back in, and it's against the rules. He can't do it. So there are a few more comments directed at me from Lou, but anyway, so the substitute quarterback comes in, and I look at him. I'll never forget, his name was Alan Holt, and I said, "You ready to go?" And he says, "Yep." So I said, "Okay, let's go." Fourth down, they get absolutely stuffed. Play goes probably 2-yard loss. Well, of course, obviously my fault because I wouldn't let the quarterback back in. So Wayne called me, and when he said, "What happened?" I said, "Why, what are you referencing?" Well, he told me that my name and phone number was in the Minneapolis paper. And it was there for 4 days. Sid Hartman, who just passed away, was the penman on that, so it was very good, very interesting. The last one I want to talk about involves, I asked Chris and Ross if they were involved in it. And no, but it was about Barry Alvarez. And it's a game that Wayne watched, and so we had a chuckle with it afterwards. And it was at Ohio State, and it was the year that the Badgers were picked to win. They were the Big Ten favorites. They they'd lost the week before. I don't know what they lost. And as I said earlier, we go in the locker room before the game, and I tell my umpire, let's get in and get out. Normally, of course, from Wisconsin, working the screen, Barry and I are pretty good friends, and so Barry wants to joke, but not today. So I said, let's get in and out. So as we're leaving, Barry says to me, well, are you going to call your 2 obligatory holding calls today? And I said, well, if I see him, I'll call him. Well, y'all know Barry's a running games coach. He'd love to run the ball. So anyway, so the game proceeds, and on the second play of the game, it's over near the hash mark on the Wisconsin side, and 2 defensive assistants, similar to Ross, similar to Mike Salter, they are the most vocal and the most aggressive of any coaches on the sideline you see. 2 of his assistants, key assistants, are yelling at me on the second play. They're holding us, they're raking us, and they're again using adjectives and adverbs and things that were a little different. And with that, okay, just kind of shake it off. Go to the next play, and the quarterback runs out of bounds right on the Wisconsin bench. So I'm over there with him, stop, and I kill the clock, and I turn around, and there he's screaming again. And Barry is standing right next to me. And I look at him, and I said, Barry, listen to those 2 jerks down there. And I used an adjective, wasn't jerks, but anyway. And he said, yeah. I said, Barry, you told me you didn't want holding called. And he said, damn you, you know exactly what I want. I want it called on them and not on us. So anyway, those are something, because Wayne always was approaching me, what's going on? How do you like it? What's going on? What about the coaches? And it was always great. He also a couple times called me asking about a call in his game or about a rule, and as you can well imagine, they weren't complimentary. He wasn't really endorsing the calls, but it was interesting. Anyway, just from my perspective, not being a DC or DC Everest alumni or a player or any of that thing, we as a community have been very, very fortunate to have Wayne be here as a teacher, a coach, and a mentor. He was highly respected on and off the football field. And Sandra and the family, it's been my honor to have known you. Best of luck in the future.
Our next speaker has lived a football life that started on this field. The lessons he learned at Everest, both academically and athletically, propelled him to a scholarship at the University of Minnesota, where he played football. He was a graduate assistant coach for the Wisconsin Badgers, for Barry Alvarez's Rose Bowl victories in 1990 and in 2000. He was on the coaching staff of the St. Louis Rams during their greatest show on turf, culminating as Super Bowl runners-up. He has worked for 8 NFL teams as a coach, an analyst, and a researcher. He said when he was working for one team on the East Coast that he would often listen to my DC Everest broadcasts and podcasts while he was waiting for traffic to clear on the New Jersey Turnpike. Currently with the Denver Broncos, please welcome a DC Everest standout football and track, class of 1987, Matt Sheldon.
You know, that sounds pretty good. You can come up and just keep going. I'm going to trade you 2 tickets. You can call every week and tell my wife that good sounding stuff. Good evening. My name is Matt Sheldon, and I'm a proud graduate of DC Everest class of 1987. Before my remarks, I offer big congratulations to our DC Everest girls state champion track and field team. Their head coach, Greg Peterson, is in attendance. Coach, it was an honor to ride those school buses and share those starting blocks with your talented and well-coached teams. A couple of thank yous. First, to Superintendent Gilmore for the foresight to shift our celebration to this summer date and for the use of this wonderful facility. Also, thanks to our financial supporters, our volunteers, and our organizing committee. We all relish sharing in this labor of love. Wayne Steffenhagen was my coach, both in football with Coach Salter and track and field with Coach Bosman and Coach Holt. Like so many of us, working with him and his staff over those 6 sports seasons continues to impact my life profoundly. This past February, I called Coach, predictably found him in the grocery store where he was reading product labels, efforting to refine his personal nutrition plan. Our conversation, like so many others, was friend to friend, ripe with information exchange. On this day, we spoke for 20 minutes about Tom Brady's hydration protocol. He never stopped researching, always seeking a competitive advantage. Then, 96 hours later, in an instant, Coach was gone. Immediately, the media reports flowed, chronicling his impressive career. You've all read about his many accomplishments. As I reached out to his inner circle, his sons, his fellow coaches, my teammates, something became obvious. He remains with us. Each communication clarified my thoughts on his legacy. His legacy is twofold. First, it is all of us. Second, it is these incredible facilities. Regarding part one of his legacy, all of us, I refer to another master coach, the legendary hockey coach Herb Brooks of University of Minnesota and 1980 Olympic fame. He believed there are a minimum of 6 mentors outside the immediate family that impact any child. For so many of us, Coach Steff was one of those mentors. Some say his lessons are old school. I prefer to call them time-tested. Get up early, eat a good breakfast, get your lunch organized, pay attention in your classroom or your workplace, exercise your body, treat your parents, teachers, and colleagues with respect. In any era, we'd be hard-pressed to find better lessons. I proudly testify his children, along with so many of his players and colleagues, mentor their children using the same messages he taught us. His legacy is living. Look to your left and your right, front and back. It is all of us. The second part of his legacy, these incredible facilities. Superintendent Gilmore, Director Seckel, as our leadership in conjunction with school and community leaders, our challenge is simple. Continue the proud tradition of DC Everest athletics in all sports, girls and boys, as they are uniquely valuable co-curricular activities. Coach Steffenhagen showed us the way. The lights above this field, the turf beneath our feet, the magnificent $6 million building to our east. These exist because of his teamwork, dedication, and effort. These facilities have wide community reach. Greenheck Fieldhouse and its weight room fitness classes, open recreation, youth programming, open skating, all positively impact thousands in our community each year. Coach Steff believed all boats rise in a rising tide. He mentioned that phrase to me during our talk last February when the topic turned to shared use facilities. In that spirit, let's build an indoor synthetic turf facility and share in its use for all Everest sports, both girls and boys, and the entire community. Let's allow professionals who manage our facilities like Aaron Mull to create a rising tide that will rise all of these boats. In closing, thanks to each of you for turning out to celebrate the life of Coach Steffenhagen. Regarding the time he shared with us, I offer the words of Dr. Seuss. Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. Coach, today, we know you smile with us because it is still happening. Thank you.
We've not had better athletes all these years. You don't win 5 or 6 state championships because you got better athletes. You do it because you're better fundamentally and you got a better attitude. That's what wins. Okay? Get up, eat a good breakfast, get your lunch organized, do all the little things to give us a chance. Buy into what we're doing. Be a team guy. Don't be your own. We don't want guys that are going to do their own thing. We can't win a team game, guys with a me guy. Stay together. It's about one heartbeat. It's about one heartbeat. All the time. It's about team.
It's always special when a father gets to coach a son. Please welcome a three-sport athlete, football, All-State 1988, hockey and track, and a three-time academic all-conference honoree. Currently, he's a guidance counselor at Palo Verde High School in Nevada. DC Everest class of 1989, Wayne Steffenhagen's son, Todd Steffenhagen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of this celebration. I'm Todd Steffenhagen, the youngest of the three Steffenhagen children. I was coached by my dad in both football and track and graduated from DC Everest in 1989. I just have a few thank yous to get out of the way before I share my remarks about Coach. I want to thank the DC Everest High School administration and athletics for putting this celebration together. Namely Todd Bohm, assistant principal, assistant track and football coach, and Tim Strelo, current head football coach, for their efforts to get this organized. I'd also like to thank all the players, coaches, and alumni for making this such a memorable event. Lastly, I would like to thank my family, and most importantly, my wife, for all the support she gave me during these difficult times. And thank you to one of my best friends throughout high school, Gerald Mortensen, who's my neighbor and teammate, for creating Paint Me Green. Our family felt so fortunate to have all those memories documented. It was such a great tribute to Coach. After my senior season, I knew I had a chance to continue playing football at the collegiate level. It was tough to think about playing for any other coach but my dad, but my experience ended up being a memorable one. Throughout college, there was no more consistent and supportive person than him, whether it was challenges in the classroom or issues on the football field. He was always there to listen. When the end of my playing days came and I had to make a decision about my career path, and once again, I knew there was no better person to lean on than him. With my parents' support and encouragement, I decided to get my master's degree in school counseling. As I continued my education, Coach's unwavering support and encouragement was always there. He was such a rock to me and a role model I wanted to follow. He had such a special gift with people. He could make a guy on the scout team believe he would play in the NFL. My career in school counseling led me to Las Vegas, Nevada, where I've been a high school counselor for the past 24 years. His coaching has lived on through me, having coached high school football and then head golf coach for the past 10 years. He was there to share in one of my most important coaching memories when we won the boys' state golf title in 2016. It was so special to have him be part of such a memorable event in my coaching career. He has helped shape many of my career decisions and clearly has been the biggest influence in my life. I know we all wish we had more time with him, but in the end, we are just fortunate that he touched part of our life. I want to thank everyone for being a part of this celebration. Love you, Coach.
The same excellence that Wayne Steffenhagen brought to football was evident each spring when the track and field season arrived. Coach Steff coached 13 state track and field champions. Our next speaker, All-State Football 1995, a member of DC Everest's outstanding track teams from 94 and 95, is still serving our school district today. He's a longtime member of the DC Everest Board of Education. Here to represent both the football and the track programs, please welcome Josh Dickerson.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Dickerson. Sandra, Kelly, Jay, Todd, and family, it means so much for this community to have you back here on Steffenhagen Field celebrating Coach's life. In 1979, Coach Steffenhagen was entering his second season as head football coach. DCR's track coach Dennis Holt approached him to join his staff as an assistant coach. DCR's had just finished 10th place in a 10-team Wisconsin Valley Conference. Coach Holt thought adding Coach Steffenhagen would elevate the Evergreens to the middle of the pack. Together, they coached the boys' track team to be Wisconsin Valley Conference champions within 8 seasons, state runners-up in 1995, and 2-time WIAA state champions in 94 and 96. The synergy between the track and field programs produced a combined total of 26 Valley Conference championships and 7 state championships during Coach Steffenhagen's career. Both programs served as cornerstones to each other. Middle of the pack? No. They became leaders of the pack. Coach Dennis Holt, one of 3 recognized coaching legends at DC Everest and Wisconsin State Track and Field Coaches Association Hall of Fame inductee, is watching us from home tonight. Let's take a moment to give him a round of applause. I got to raise this up a little bit. All right. Coach Steffenhagen loved being at the track. He was the driving force behind 13 individual state track and field champions during his coaching career. He relished individual and small group workouts that allowed his scientific approach to flourish. He was on the leading edge of training high school athletes with a focus on running technique, increased turnover, explosion, and overspeed training. For those of you in attendance who remember being pulled down the hallway in the senior high or at the track by a piece of surgical tubing, you can smile with me. Coach knew success from hard work was measured in small wins. When an athlete recorded a personal best during a track meet, he made sure to take a moment to recognize it. He pulled you in for an extra long handshake to talk about what you could improve on and also on what you did well. He let you know that he was proud of you. He used this handshake to drive home so many of the virtues we remember him by. Today I'll be sharing some thoughts on two virtues that were important to Coach: effort and dedication. Let's start with effort. For Coach Steffenhagen, effort is a state of mind. It goes hand in hand with mental toughness, being focused. It was something you could hone and grow. Like any habit, it can become a way of life, something nearly impossible to turn off. He expected effort to always be turned on. He lived his life this way. Giving 100% effort when you weren't competing is how champions were made. Getting a good night's sleep, starting the day with nutrition and hydration are the bookends of effort. Being coachable is effort. Making the right decisions when nobody is watching or telling you what to do is effort. Doing all the little things right is effort. If you put effort into all the decisions you make, you have Everest pride in what you do. For Coach Steffenhagen, effort is about how you chose to live your life. Another virtue, dedication. Focused effort, day after day, year after year, is dedication. Dedication is purpose. It's improving 1% every day in the things that matter to you. Coach and dedication were best friends. He demonstrated dedication in everything he did. He was a dedicated husband, father, grandfather, friend, teacher, and coach. When athletes have purpose and are dedicated to one another, great things happen. Scott Peterson, Nate Zastro, Tim Ringwelski, Pete Irwin, Clint Berger, Brett Mueller, Matt Schmidt, William Tanky Porter, and Derek Abney were my teammates on 4 consecutive 4x100 meter relay championship titles. Coach Steffenhagen was especially proud of our 4x100 meter relay teams. In this event, The sprinters pass the baton on the fly. We're running at over 20 miles an hour. Any mishandling of the baton slows you down. Not completing a handoff in the required zone disqualifies you. Coach Steffenhagen knew clean, efficient handoffs are what wins that state. He dedicated our training to never shortchanging the skill of the handoff. We practice all the time. During warm-up laps in the high school hallways before sprint training in winter, as we jog to the track for practice, and then again more at practice. I'm certain our relay team led the state in reps for handoffs. Our purpose was to be the best in state. As a result of this dedication over 4 seasons, not a single failed handoff, over 40 consecutive wins, and 4 state championships. As teenagers, he pushed us to think beyond our own selves. Actually, I'm going to go back a second. In closing, Coach mentored young people that effort and dedication are cornerstones of success. As teenagers, he pushed us to think beyond our own selves, to believe in something greater. These teachings and conversations eventually hit home and become more important as we age and gain life experiences. For so many of us here today, Coach Steffenhagen's lessons continue to guide us in our approach to life. I'm pleased to know that many of you are passing these lessons on through coaching and through parenting. These lessons are what I value the most from my 7 varsity seasons in track and field under the direction of Coach Wayne Steffenhagen. Thank you, Coach Steffenhagen, and thank you, Sandra, Kelly, Jay, Todd, and family for supporting and sharing Coach throughout the years. We love you, and thank you.
He sent out his weight program to a lot of people.
Remember, we want to get all 3 maxes done today.
But the reason that our weight program works is because he works with the kids. He doesn't just stand in the weight room and stand there with his arms folded and let the kids just do whatever.
Get our ears back and get it done and get after it, okay? Here we go. Let's have some fun. Fire it up. Let's go. That engine running. Hey, how you doing, Paul? Good. Good to see you, Riley. How's my man? We're going to crank it up here. We're going to knock the roof off of this place. Move those feet. I want those feet just like they're on fire. Got to be explosive. Cal, awesome. Boy, you hit a big one today in that bench. Chest up. Hop. Legs now, legs and hips. Tyler, how's it going? Excellent, outstanding. Mace, back it up now. You got to attack. You got to go right out of your mind and believe in yourself. Jack it up. Let's go. Got to attack it. Got to move those feet. Got to be able to dance or we can't use you. All right? Shots first. Don't even grab it.
Many of us learned of Wayne Steffenhagen's retirement in 2011 from Dale Ryman's sports broadcast that night on Channel 7. It included a memorable and an emotional interview with Coach. He reflected on his 33 years leading Everest football. Dale Ryman joins us today. He's now news anchor and news director at WSAW. We have so many wonderful DC Everest football alumni with us, and Dale has agreed to moderate a panel discussion of players who were coached by Wayne Steffenhagen.
How's everybody doing tonight? Thankful that Mark Hawley hooked us up with some weather, right? A couple of weeks ago, I got a message. When I used to work in sports, I'd be on the sidelines or at practice. And it could be the happiest of times for Evergreens football. Coming off a blowout win, or maybe even winning the game. And I would see Coach Todd Bone, and he would not crack a smile. I thought, man, this guy hates me. He hates the camera. And then I got a message from him a couple weeks ago, and I thought, I'm not even in news anymore. Oh my God, I don't even want to open this email. And it was to ask me to be part of this. So, Coach, thank you. I was, without a shadow of a doubt, happy to be part of this. So we're going to have a kind of a halftime for you guys. If anybody needs to stand up and stretch the knees for a second, by all means do so. We're going to introduce a couple of guys here that are covering all the decades for Coach Steffenhagen. We're going to start from his first two teams. This gentleman is a 1980 DC Everest graduate. He played football, wrestling, and was in track and field. He was all-state football in 1979. He even coached with Coach Steffenhagen. He went on to play at the University of Wisconsin, and as we said earlier, he went into the NFL too to play with Washington. He earned a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Arts at UW, and right now he's the owner and president of Applied Laser Technology, Chris Oswald. Our next guy up here, what we're going to do is we're going to tell some stories as we introduce these guys to you. Class of 1986, played football, basketball, and baseball here for DC Everest. For a short time, he was the head coach of Annunciation Catholic Girls Basketball here in town. He went to the University of Minnesota and achieved a Bachelor of Arts in Economics. He is currently the owner and president of Fallbush's Clothing in Edina, Minnesota, Dave Rutt. Our next gentleman, class of 1999. It was hard for me to get a word with him because everybody wanted to talk to this guy. He played football. He was in track and field. He went on to play at the University of Kentucky, receiver and kick returner. He was named an SEC legend, and he was inducted into the University of Kentucky Hall of Fame. He achieved his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering at UK. He right now is the logistics manager at Ingevity, Derek Abney. Guy next to him was one of his teammates, also graduated in 1999, played football and track and field here at Everest. Went on to play at UW Stout and earned a Bachelor of Science in Technology Education. Right now, he is the part owner and general superintendent of Ellis Construction, and he also serves as a youth football coach in Stratford, Tim Kreft. And our last gentleman here was on Coach Steff's next to last team. Graduated in 2009, played football, track and field, and you can attest to those handoffs with the baton, Matt, I'm sure. Went to the University of South Dakota for football and track, and then Coach Steff helped him get into the University of Wisconsin in track. So he helped him get recruited twice. You're doubly indebted. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Sociology at UW. Right now, he works for the city of Schofield in public works operator, Matt Kurzweil. All right, so I have an open forum here. We just saw the video. We've seen some mini videos tonight, but Coach Steff, that weight room was intense. Am I right? Chris. Now, I was told that you used to come back here, even when you were playing with Washington in the NFL, to work out in Coach Steff's gym.
Yeah, there was a lot of, when we went to the NFL, I was at Wisconsin and got the opportunity to work out with some of the guys there. There was a different mindset. When we got to Washington, they just didn't have that intensity as you saw in the video. And in order to, I wasn't as gifted as an athlete as some of these gentlemen here, but my job was to outwork the group as much as I could, and that intensity wasn't there. So in order for me to excel in what I was doing, I needed to come back into Coach Steff said it. Drive and hard work and just build that foundation.
You were on Coach Steff's first teams here. Did you see the progression of the type of man? Did he soften up at all? Or did that intensity stay?
Oh yeah, sure, he softened up.
Yeah.
No, the intensity never wavered. That was probably the best thing that you saw, and the amount of people that he touched and the foundations that he built with everybody is because of that unwavering, direction that he always gave.
How about you, Tim? That unwavering intensity of Coach Kreft. How did it leave a lasting impact on you?
Well, as we saw in the video before, the one thing that always stuck out was doing the little things right. Whether it was with football, whether now with raising my family, coaching the kids that I do professionally, that is always there. And that's one thing that I think all of us can attest to are one of the greatest things that he ever taught us. And as well as so many of these things not realizing what they meant until we all matured a little bit and look back on it now. So.
I was looking through when I was doing some of the research for today. One of the guys on the Facebook page when Coach Steff had passed said that he provided a roadmap to the challenges of life. Matt, you agree with that? And how so?
I totally agree. You're 16, 17, 18 years old, and he talks about this stuff, and you're like, okay, I'm going to have kids in 10 years, whatever. Now I got two little ones and a beautiful wife, and you got to work hard at it, and nothing comes easy. As Coach Steff would always say, nothing comes easy. You got to work hard.
Derek, you had to have been Coach Steff's. You were his baby, right? I mean, you got favorable treatment because he couldn't win games without you, right?
Absolutely not. At least from my point of view. But you kind of hear a theme with Coach Steff, don't you? And for me, I really felt he appreciated the journey to the 5 state championships as much as he did the hard work, honestly. And that role model type behavior is what is instilled in these men up here and the 3,000 athletes that he impacted. Of course you want the results, but to appreciate the journey is definitely something that I learned from Coach.
Dave, how about you? How are you paying it forward? What was that virtue that you learned from Coach Steff that sticks with you today?
You know, I think I've coached my daughters for a total of 14 years in basketball, grade school basketball. Of course, we can't use the same level of intensity. So, but, you know, I think Coach always instilled in us the benefit of goal setting and having a positive attitude and being willing to hustle. And I think those are the things as I look at my daughter and her friends, that's the stuff that I talk about and that we care about. And additionally, he always wanted us to be better athletes, but better people. So that class kind of organization, he was a class guy. So I've kind of tried to keep our kids at that level too.
Chris, how did Coach Steff adapt to the game as it changed? You got to see it not only from your playing days, but when you were coaching with him. He coached one of your kids. How did he adapt to the game?
He was steadfast in his thought process of how he was going to either game plan or work, and the intensity and the fundamentals. Those things never wavered. It's to this day, I've been lucky to play here in Wisconsin and with some of these coaches as mentors, and you always find something that they've stuck to, and Coach stuck to. He was going to out-fundamental you. He was going to, intensity-wise, and we were going to execute. I don't care if you're from the 2000s or from the 70s. Those fundamentals had to be done in order to be successful. Yes, there's ways that you probably voice them to be, a little bit, they got away with things a little bit more when we were older, in the younger days. But I think the game plan of building that foundation is never wavered or changed. So,
Dave, he had a way with words, didn't he?
He certainly did. And I'm going to share 2 stories, Gutbaum and Daniel Boone. So let me give you some context. Probably half of the 1986 class worked at McDonald's. I was one of them. Coach knew that, so he was big into nutrition. So he had a tendency during practice to single a guy out, which was sometimes good and sometimes not good. But
in my case, he would look at me and say, Rut, don't be eating those gut bombs from McDonald's. And I ran into a good friend of mine, Pete Powers, yesterday, and he reminded me of a story. Pete was a hunter-fisherman kind of guy. So Coach would always look to him and say, hey, Daniel Boone, how about not falling out of a tree this weekend? I need you on Saturday. So yeah, he had a way with words.
Let's pass it down to Matt. Matt, since you were on one of his last teams, I don't know if he softened up or not. What's the memory that sticks with you with Coach Steff? It could be humorous. It could be something that you're teaching your kids today that's hardline, drill sergeant. What sticks with you?
He did soften up, I'll tell you that. State track, #1 in the state. We do a briefing before the state finals. Coach Strelo told me the story, but we're sitting there and I'm eating candy the night before the state finals. Coach Steff looks at me, just shakes his head. That's it. And then I knew, I said, I better perform after that, so. I got second, so. So he did soften up, though.
How about Tim? When you hear all these stories tonight shared with Coach Steff, it's different when you're in the locker room or when you're on a state championship team. You see a different type of intensity. Am I right about that? What does Coach Steff stick out about that?
As much as I'd like to explain how that all is, it's not appropriate for this audience. Very, very intense. And stuff, trying to come up with a funny story. Again, a lot of the stuff was not appropriate for the context that we're in. But the one thing that did stand out, our state championship game, 1998, defensive struggle. I think we won 14-12. It's 4th and forever. We've got a guy, I was in a 9 technique, and Coach Bohm, I think, wherever he is, he's probably yelling right now again. Outside contain, boom. I've been wiping this guy out, offensive lineman all day, cut in on him, I did not do my job. Guy got around, gained almost all those yards. As everybody's cheering, getting back to the sideline, Coach Bohm is, I don't know how to explain what he was saying, but it was, again, not real appropriate. Everybody else is
smiling too. Look at that.
Everybody else is cheering. He's yelling. My dad always laughs about that too because he knew exactly what happened. Point being with this whole story is after the game, all showered up and we're leaving the locker room, Coach Steff comes up, Kraft, you had a great game. He says, I know what happened. And he says, you realize what could have happened. So there was never a moment that he took off, and he always wanted to coach you no matter what the circumstances were.
Derek, you're fortunate to join us today, coming in all the way from Charleston, South Carolina. Why?
Well, I wanted to definitely take an opportunity to share something that I know we've had a consistent theme, that how dedicated Coach was. I mean, I've got to talk with his assistant coaches in a different light now that I'm a man, and they all talked about how hard they worked. But invariably, they all said how doubly hard Coach would work, right? But if working hard to his craft was what he did, then his love for Mrs. Steff, is what I call her, Sandra, was very evident. And so we all saw how hard he worked in football, and we all saw how much he loved Mrs. Steffenhagen. So I wanted to just tell you that he was a role model in that regard for everybody up here, and a wonderful man on the football field, and obviously a husband and in the community. Mm-hmm.
Which, yes, for sure. So when Coach Steff retired, I had a sit-down interview with him, did a one-on-one. Every time I would see him after this, he'd come up to me and he'd shake my hand, greet me. Dale, I'll never forgive you for making me cry on TV. I asked him 2 questions that brought tears to his eyes. And maybe this was the softer side of Coach Steff. Could breathe a sigh of relief after all this. I asked him, I said, what advice would you give to an up-and-coming coach to have the type of success that you had? And without a shadow of a doubt, it's all about the kids. Not just on the field, but in the classroom and in their life. Take an interest. It's all about the kids. Second question, joking with him, trying to bring it back around. This is a few questions later. I said, so does Sandra have a honey-do list ready for you? And he pauses. Everybody knows Coach Steff's mannerisms. He puts his finger on his lip. And through that quivering lip and with a shaky voice, he said, I could not have done this for as long as I have without the support of my wife. True story. True story. So, Dave, how are you painting it green these days?
Wow, that's a good question. I think what Coach Steff, in my view, he was ahead of his time in a lot of things. But for me personally, one of the things he really opened my eyes to was goal setting and attitude. And to this day, I started writing down my goals in 1997. I'm kind of a geek about it, but that was him. He was the first person that introduced that to all of us. And that was before the whole personal development thing got going. That was him. And attitude. Try to keep a positive attitude all the time.
How about you, Tim?
Again, getting back to the doing the little things right that we have a chance. Trying to, all the students or the kids that I'm able to coach and my own children, trying to keep that instilled in them to do the right things when nobody else is watching. Not only that, but again, in a professional setting, working with your team and getting them to buy in and do what's right as well. And hopefully we're able to continue that on and keep that going.
When I first moved back here to Wausau, Matt was a junior and senior. And when we started talking about doing this, and you said you're in your 30s, family and kids, I thought, oh my God, I feel old. How is that what you've learned under Coach Steffenhagen, whether it be on the field, off the field? How are you translating that into not only maybe your work life, but your personal life?
Coach Steff always taught pay it forward and give it back to the community. So, doing the little things with my family, or I joined an organization called My Team Triumph. I'd push a cart running that special needs kids, and it's paying it forward. God gave you the ability to play football and run track, so help people out with it.
They're about to play our music to get off stage. Real quick, give the mic to Chris. Chris, you knew Coach Steff, and as we've discussed, we've already said, many different facets. We'll give you the final parting shot tonight.
I think the biggest thing that that I leave with and with you is, Coach was very personable but very hard. But that hardness was a love that we all cherished, and we'll never forget what he's meant to most of us. And the people that have never had him coach you or anything like that, it instills in you that you should pay forward, as we've all said that, because it was part of his deal where if I can, help a young kid build his foundation of life as a mentor like he did, I've been successful in some way, shape, or form.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us here tonight. And I want to thank everyone for letting me be a part of this. Chris?
I'm surprised no one told this story. One of these 2 stories is true. Coach Steffenhagen once held practice during a tornado. Or Coach Steffenhagen once released wild animals on the practice field because he thought people would run faster. Which one's true? The tornado. Nothing stopped practice. People thought what kind of animals? One of the ways that Wayne Steffenhagen's legacy lives on is through the number of his athletes who became teachers and coaches. In fact, I think all of our current DC Everest coaching staff for this coming season either played for Coach or is the child of a parent who played for him. Our next speaker has taught in the Everest School District for 24 years, and he's been an assistant coach for Everest football since 1989, and is assistant coach for our state championship girls track and field team. He's an evergreen. His children are evergreens. From the class of 1989, please welcome Coach Dave Wanta.
Hi, I'm Dave Wanta, proud to be a DC Everest student athlete. Played on the football and track teams coached by Wayne Steffenhagen. How many of you are here tonight because you watch games as a spectator? How many of you are here as a former athlete? As a fellow coach, colleague, or administrator? And how many of you are here as a friend? I'd be honored to be all of these. My first memories of DC Everest football were as a 10-year-old boy hearing the PA announcer and the school band walking to Steam Stadium from my house 1 block away. Upon entering the stadium, I stood at the fence near the field, and the players seemed like giants. As a freshman, I had the opportunity to choose my school between a Catholic school on the north side of town or DC Everest. It was an easy choice for me. I wanted to be part of a winning tradition I witnessed on all those Saturday afternoons as a kid. I wanted to be coached by Coach Steff. Coach built a rich culture of winning and toughness that he instilled in his athletes. I sat in the locker room every day and soaked up his daily motivational messages with my teammates. Those motivational messages would later positively impact me and were my driving force to become a football coach. Our practices were tough and intense. Coach Steff and his assistants brought an energy level that I've never seen before. The coaches did this to make us practice at our very best. Coach Steff always had his teams prepared, a hallmark of DC Everest football we strive for today. We were always well-conditioned and played with an attitude, a mystique, so to speak. As a testament to Coach Steff's greatness, I recall talking with Coach Lutke from Marshfield, who was inquiring about the Everest mystique. I chuckled and then explained that the biggest part of this mystique was being so well prepared that the game seemed easier than the practices. The fact we knew we were already going to win, the fact we've already done it before we've actually done it. I never went into a game as a player or coach thinking we were going to lose. He coached us into believing we could win every game. And our teams played hard and with great toughness. He built this program into a feared, dominant, and respected team in the state, winning many conference titles and state championships. At the end of my senior season, Coach Steff asked me to help him coach next season. I was like, wow, me? I said yes without ever thinking about it. And 22 years later, I never looked back. I coached with him through his retirement in 2010. Now I get to see things from the other side, the coaching side. I thought being a player was tough. He coaches assistants, coaches even harder. Coach gave us the best equipment and facilities available. Coach Steff demanded the best. He had the desire to win, and we did. He told me this so many times that he may not be the smartest coach out there, but the one thing that will never happen is he will not be outworked. I could see the genuine love Coach Steff had for his athletes. He made all its players feel important, not just the starters. He wanted all of his assistant coaches to be all on the same page as he and the players. We all listened to his daily messages he gave to the team. The messages that I can still hear him give today. Get 1% better. Do the little things right. So many great memories in coaching with him and so many great games as a player and coach. It surprised me that Coach Steff was retiring from head coaching. I was shocked and saddened that he was done. I remember sitting on the bus after we won the state championship in 1989, my first year as a coach, that he said he'd probably coach another 4 to 5 years. Well, in 2010, two decades later, he did. He would still come to the practices and games and give some advice. You could still see the drive and desire and passion in his eyes he had when he was a head coach. You never know how important someone is to you until they are gone. I miss those conversations with my friend. As a player, they're about getting to the weight room, getting an extra set of push-ups or dips in. As a coach, discussions about player personnel, coaching schemes, and keeping our intensity. As a friend, talks about faith and family. We had so many conversations about my family and his. Conversations on how proud he was of his children and grandchildren. Conversations of his wife, Sandra. Conversations of which doctors to go see. Conversations about the NFL draft and the Packers. Conversations about life. I never knew how one man could impact so many people in this great community until I saw how much he cared about people. What he did for others. After the coaching staff found about his passing, we decided it'd be a good idea to turn on the lights at Steffenhagen Field, Steam Stadium, at 7 p.m. on a Friday night in February. Game time. We had the honor to see so many of our former athletes and community members show their respect and tell stories about Coach. Most of the stories focused on the positive impact he had and how they didn't realize it at the time but appreciate it now. So much respect given to him. I enjoyed hearing those stories because he had the same effect on me. I still hear his voice. I still hear his motivational speeches. These are the things that Coach gave to me. And these are the things that I pay forward. My children, my student athletes are the beneficiaries. I thank you all for coming on such a special and emotional night, a night we celebrate an impactful man's life. I thank the Steffenhagen family, especially Coach's wife, Sandra, and especially a man I was so close to. This one is for you, Coach Steff. Thank you.
For 21 consecutive years, we're not bragging because the athletes have done this. We've never finished below second. And we're very proud of that. That is a remarkable record, as well as being in the playoff 14 consecutive times, 5 state titles, 1 runner-up. That has been, I think, a pretty impressive record on behalf of the athletes that we've had. Let's give them a hand. 1, 2, 3. Very good job, gentlemen. More importantly than that, we're about developing young men, hopefully with great character. We want them to be great people in and around the community, at our school to be great leaders. Secondly, we want them to be a great student. Those 2 factors are what they're going to take with them the rest of their life, and we certainly support that from the bottom of our heart 100%. You know, every time you walk by that stadium and you see that wall of fame, that field, the tremendous involvement our community has
you have to feel a sense of pride. It's just a pleasure and to be a part of this program and certainly this community.
Our two final speakers tonight are both from the Steffenhagen family. Some of the best words you will hear tonight about Coach are from his granddaughter. She's a graduate of the University of Minnesota's Entrepreneurial Management Program and is a senior analyst with Amazon. Please welcome to the stage Hannah Steffenhagen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you as well to everyone who made this event possible tonight. I'm Hannah Steffenhagen, Coach Steph and Sandra's granddaughter, and Jay's favorite daughter. Right, Dad? I'm his only daughter, don't worry. My grandpa and I had a lot of things in common. We both attended the University of Minnesota, and while each of us attended school there, we lived in the same dorm hall. They did add air conditioning and color TV by the time I got there. We were both very competitive euchre players, and if I recall correctly, I do believe I beat him in the last game we played. We could both spend hours at the grocery store reading nutrition labels or trying to save 30 cents on a pack of blueberries. But I connected with my grandpa not just because of our similarities, but for all that he taught me, with the most important lesson coming after his passing. When I was growing up, I would go to my grandparents' house and I would see all of the DCE memorabilia downstairs. If you've been to their house, you know what I'm talking about. The state titles, the Hall of Fame plaques, the track and field medals, you name it. My grandpa's career was so impressive, even just hearing about his accomplishments made me proud to know him and say that he was my grandpa. But when he passed, no one talked about the state titles. No one talked about the Hall of Fame. No one talked about track and field victories or his record as a football coach. No one talked about what I always thought made him legendary. Instead, they talked about his character, how he made others feel, how he could build a young person to believe in himself even when he saw nothing in the mirror. They told stories about how he impacted him, how he was a father figure to so many young men, how he was a community builder and the truest example of a leader. They talked about the funny things he said and did. They talked about what he stood for. At the end of the day, they talked about the man he was and not what he accomplished. It wasn't until my grandpa passed that I realized success is not about winning. It's not a medal. It's not a trophy. It's not being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Success is not just your accomplishments. All of these things are simply the byproducts of success. In reality, success is the relationships you build with others. It's the community you invest in, the family you knit. But more than anything, success is your character. It's who you are and who you choose to be every day. Success is a choice that we all have. And I know my grandpa became the man we admired because he chose success daily. I learned from him not to strive just for the end goal, but instead to invest in yourself, in your character, your relationships, your partner, your family, your team, as that is the only way a person can achieve success in life. So with that, I say thank you, Grandpa, for all that you taught me, especially this one last lesson. Thank you all for being here today.
Not a single one of us has more than 24 hours in a day. We don't have a moment more. And it takes a tremendous amount of time to coach a football team, maybe more time than it should. We owe a debt of gratitude to Wayne Steffenhagen's wife. She generously shared her husband with all of us. Wayne and Sandra found each other early in life. They were together for 56 years. I believe in the fullness of time they'll be together again. Wayne Steffenhagen's beloved wife has asked to speak to us today. Please welcome Sandra Steffenhagen.
First of all, I want to say hello to all my dear friends that are out here. Our family thanks you so very much for this wonderful and amazing celebration of life, and for all the tremendous effort, commitment, and coordination it took to make this special day a reality. The list of thank yous is very long, and there will never be enough of them. Words are inadequate to express what our family is feeling, and we are so grateful for all the support and love you have given to us. This evening will always be etched in our memories. Thanks also for coming tonight and sharing this amazing celebration with us. Several years ago, I received a coffee cup from a friend with this message on it. We interrupt this marriage to bring you the football season. I took the message to heart, and it became my mantra. I never felt the interruption was a negative thing, but an opportunity which allowed Wayne and I to form a football partnership for many years. These years were filled with all the exhilaration and disappointment that coaches experience throughout their careers, and each year's story played out on the Everest football field. This field is a very special place. It tells a story about Everest and mirrors much of what it takes to succeed in life. It has gone from hosting Saturday afternoon games years ago to the excitement of Friday night lights, and it has evolved from a grass field to one with beautiful artificial turf. Both of these major improvements to the field were initiated and brought to fruition through the efforts of strong community support and leadership, which is the essence of Everest. This community was willing to believe that the dream was attainable and it could be achieved through hard work, discipline, and dedication. Many years of exciting and entertaining football games were played here, and many young men learned about being strong, resilient, and making the right decisions. I can feel the charisma here, and it touches my heart because so much of my life with Wayne revolved around this field. I was told Coach always asked his players to leave their hearts on the field. Mine is here too, but I received an amazing gift of a bracelet with the exact field coordinates engraved on it, so I will always have the field with me. It's right here. Wayne was such a large presence in my life and that of our family. I always felt he was invincible. He had such a passion for coaching and working with young men. It was his career, his hobby, and his entertainment. He never had trouble being competitive and often mentioned that he wished he could still suit up. All of the athletes he coached were like sons to him. He loved you and he talked about you all the time. But now he is not here and we are faced with some choices. We can shed tears because he is gone, or we can smile because he lived. We can close our eyes and pray he will come back, or we can open our eyes and see all that he has left for us. We can remember only that he is gone, or we can cherish his memory and let it live on. We can cry, close our minds, and feel empty, or we can do what he would want. Smile, open our hearts, and go on. We have our game plan.
It is so rare to have so many members of the DC Everest family here in the same place. That may be one of Coach Steffenhagen's final gifts to us, that we could all be together tonight. We will continue to talk about his memory and his legacy. 9 o'clock tonight at Dale's Weston Lanes, a short trip down the road, and I hope that all or many of you will join us. It's also entirely appropriate that we honor Wayne Steffenhagen with a memorial scholarship so that Evergreens forever will know about him. If you would like to contribute, the QR code that's around the stadium tonight or that is in your program will give you more information. Wayne Steffenhagen encouraged everyone to excel in athletics and in academics. More than 3,000, we can't count them all, of his students went on to college. 220 of his athletes earned college scholarships. 26 were valedictorians. It was never a surprise to anyone to see a DC Everest football or a track athlete walking across the graduation stage with the gold cords of academic excellence. Coach told us that the best students are the best athletes, that there are no shortcuts to athletic success or to academic success. Our celebration of Wayne Steffenhagen's life is coming to an end. There are many in the community who have donated to make this event possible, and those names are on the video board to our right. And we thank them for their generosity to help to bring us all together today. Finally, please feel free to come down to the field to join us for a final time of fellowship and a final time of photographs before we leave here tonight. We owe so much to Wayne Steffenhagen. We thank his family for sharing him with us. We thank each and every one of you for coming tonight. Thank you, everyone.